And we are joined here at the anchor desk by former CIA analyst Lisa Ruth. And on the far end of the desk, it's our old pal Michael Solomon. Michael, former special investigator for the NYPD, also the author of what I perceive to be a great read. I enjoyed it with a O. Henry-esque twist at the end, The Conversion Prophecy. Speaking of conversions, Lisa Ruth, apparently a post-campaign conversion for Donald Trump. This ain't going to sit well with a whole lot of people.
From an analytic standpoint, looking at it, it is going to be interesting to see how the base reacts. And we've been hearing from sources inside his team that he's really not interested in pursuing this. We've been hearing it for a while. We have not heard it publicly. And it is going to be interesting to hear how his base responds to this.
Well, of course, it's more than political. There are legal implications. But Michael Solomon, the kind of buzz phrase is always, well, we don't want to politicize our differences. This goes beyond a difference, does it not?
This is national security. I mean, look what she's done. Look, you know, the fact that we now know that her server's been hacked. I mean, you know, Comey came out twice and said nobody would pursue this and there's no reason to go on and investigate it any further or take it to a grand jury. That doesn't preclude Congress from acting on their own and investigating it and bringing her in and pressing charges. And you've got to understand also the foundation is still under investigation. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a criminal enterprise.
Well, yeah, we heard about all the RICO statutes, and Lisa, with your background as a CIA analyst, and all these governments around the world, but specifically in the Middle East, specifically, for lack of a better term, we'll call them the petro kingdoms and the largesse that came to the Clinton Foundation. This is troubling, at least in terms of national security and the notion that conceivably there was quid pro quo for different governments within our own State Department.
Sure, the pay for play, you know, whatever you want to call it. And as you said, the Middle East, there's also Haiti. I mean, the whole situation with Haiti is a complete disaster. And the problem I have and the disconnect I have is there is evidence, and I know they talked about whether it would be difficult to prove or not, but we have pretty hard evidence that, at least in my opinion, leads to a grand jury, whether it's going to be taken beyond that point. But if you look at just Haiti, just the Middle East, the very clear indications we have, the actual documents, these are original documents. I'm not sure what else you're looking for. Well,
Michael mentioned Congress can continue on. And by the way, as we continue the discussion, your calls very much welcomed at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Your first chance to tell a national audience what's on your mind in the wake of this revelation. Now, the point has been made, and in fact, Michael Reagan was on Newsmax Prime last night, and he said essentially, Donald Trump has been elected as an independent using the machinery, and he didn't mean it in a derogatory sense, but the Republican Party gave its nomination to an independent. So Congress, being a separate and co-equal branch of government, can continue the investigation, but that is very different from a criminal proceeding, Michael.
Well, you know, there's an old saying that you can probably indict a ham sandwich. And I think the evidence that Comey has is a lot more than ham and cheese. There's more than rye bread and mustard on it, too. I mean, that should have been brought to a grand jury and let them make the decision whether there was enough evidence to take this to trial or to go further with it. And it's mind-boggling. I mean, knowing my investigative background and what I've brought to grand juries, it's mind-boggling that this case didn't go there.
There is another component of this. And it's the current president. Because, of course, Mr. Trump is president-elect. He's a private citizen. He does not have pardon power, and perhaps we need to delineate this. We are not talking about a pardon. We're simply saying now that apparently there's a determination that, you know, in terms of priorities, we're not really going to have the Department of Justice follow up on this. A lot of us would add, as they should, but they stop with follow up on this. But here's the other dynamic, Lisa. You've got Mr. Obama sitting there with the pardon power. In one sense, in terms of political leverage, thinking strategically, to have President Obama, who's already proven his disconnection with hardworking Americans, with the disaffected, his the fact that he's enraptured with the elites, to have him leave office pardoning her forever or for a good long time puts the taint of criminality on the Democrat Party. By taking this away, it seems to me Mr. Trump has done two things. Number one, taking Mr. Obama off the hot seat, but knowing Barack Obama and his background as a community agitator, I can see him Thanksgiving Day saying, you know, I'm taking a cue from my successor, and so now as president, I'm pardoning all of the dreamers.
Besides the two turkeys, right?
And yeah. Besides Tom, millions of people who have come in here illegally and will vote Democrat, he might use this as the excuse to pardon them. Is there anything? That's my suspicion. Is there anything to that in your mind?
I don't know. I think the first thing to look at, though, is really Trump has also suggested that so far that's not going to be his main point either. Obama is holding his cards very close to his chest, but we all know he has a few months to really cement what he sees as his legacy, whatever that means to him. And so I think that's there. We should be watching for whatever he's going to do. Obamacare, he's working, trying to get some things on the table with Trump. We know that. We know that immigration is a big part of his plan. I think if he can do something, he will. But I also think you should watch and see what Donald Trump, president-elect, says he is going to focus on. Because so far, he's kind of giving some latitude to some of these programs, so Obama may not have to step in. But he does want to cement his legacy, no question about that.
And, you know, just look at his background as a community organizer. The guy is happy to flummox a lot of Americans, and especially those he perceives as having tarnished his legacy. So he's got an axe to grind,
And
I
he's got
guess,
the
Michael.
power to
Well,
do
the other
it.
thing, and the other thing too, if Trump's not going to pursue this, okay, and Obama pardons her, what is he telling the American people? Gee, I'm pardoning her because somewhere down deep in my soul, I may think that she might be guilty of something. I mean, why would you pardon somebody if you have no inkling, you know?
Well, you know, this guy, because he has operated really without taking public opinion into account or always having the dominant media culture apologize for him or champion what he does, I could see him, not just for Hillary, I could see him go through the State Department and anybody related to this, even tangentially. This is why I get back to the Dreamers. There's already been an appeal from those illegals saying, issue a blanket pardon. You can do that. And given the fact that first, last, and always for the left, it's politics and power, and they now understand, especially, they got to bring in the vote. In the old days, you said, get out the vote. Not anymore. They got to bring in a new vote. And he's got a chance to help them electorally.
You know, somebody was talking to me the other day, and they said, why would you want to humiliate her again? I said, what do you mean again? They said, hasn't she been humiliated enough by losing? I said, you're right. She has. So what are we going to do? We're going to, you know, put her up on a pedestal and say, okay, we're knocking the blocks out from under you. You're going to fall. She's fallen. She's done. Finished. You're never going to hear from Hillary again as far as politics is concerned. I think she's out of it.
I don't know. These people are beyond shame. This is kind of like Friday the 13th. Now, look, Mrs. Clinton is not Freddy Krueger.
Who keeps coming back.
But
Yeah.
no, this thing, unless there is some sort of impediment, and you know, I don't know because I'm not a lawyer, haven't played one on TV. I know constitutionally you cannot have a bill of attainder. Mm-hmm. But unless there was some sort of private agreement saying you stay away from public life or running for office again, she'll, in some way, shape, fashion, or form, whether it's even living vicariously through her daughter, Chelsea, they're going to try to come back.
Hit them with the Hatch Act. Then you can shut them down completely.
Well, there is a lot to be done, and it fairly boggles the mind. The other thing, and this is very instructive, because here we are. A substantial portion of time has elapsed in our program today. We haven't talked about the transition. Donald Trump put together a videotape, went straight to you with a 2-minute videotape on his first 100 days in office. And so now the question is, do you even know what he talked about last night? Has this story wiped it away? Or did you listen to those 2 minutes? Did you download? Did you take a look at it on the computer? And are you approving of the first 100 days of the Trump administration? Our parent website, Newsmax.com, said, wait a minute. There was no mention of a border wall. There was no mention of the repeal of Obamacare. The polling shows us right now, CNN ORC says that a majority of people think Mr. Trump will be very good or fairly good as president. But did today's announcement change that for you? Or in the vernacular of Washington, was this a trial balloon from Kellyanne Conway from whence the president-elect can back away?